President and Senators, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm filling in for Reverend Culmer, who sends her warmest greetings from her hometown of Savannah Sound. I read from the Holy Bible, the book of Judges, chapter 1, beginning at verse 4. When Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there that they found Adonai Bezek and fought against him, putting to rout the Canaanites and Perizzites. Adonai Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Then Adonai Bezek said, 70 kings, with their thumbs and big toes cut off, have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. We end at verse 7. This reminds us of a truth that God has tried to teach us humans since time began, and yet we haven't all learned, or we have selected memory. It took 70 defeated enemies before Adonai Bezek understood. It seems he was so intent on embarrassing and humiliating his enemies that he never thought about the same thing happening to him until it did. Too many times we find ways to cut off others' thumbs and big toes. We cause embarrassment, humiliation, frustration, even devastation. But how often do we stop to think of how we would feel if what we dished out boomeranged back onto us? This truth, stated more succinctly in another book in the Bible, the letter to the Galatians in chapter 6, verse 7. Do not be misled. No one makes a fool of God. What a person plants, he will harvest. Let us pray. Gracious God, teach us your ways and guide us to your truth. Even if sometimes you have to hit us upside our spiritual heads to knock the sense into us. And when we learn your ways, Lord, strengthen us to follow them. Lead us in the paths of righteousness for your name's sake. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We join in the prayer Jesus gave us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Adoption of minutes.
Mr. President, I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Senate held on Monday, the 23rd of June, 2023 be adopted.
Second.
2023, 24, yeah, all three of them. There are three meetings.
Yes, sorry, yeah, we met,
Yes.
3 days. So the minutes of the sessions held on June 23rd, 2025, June 24th, 2025, and June 25th, 2025 be adopted.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be adopted. Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign.
No, as many.
Sorry. As many? As many as are in favor, say aye. Those who oppose, say nay. The minutes are adopted. Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign. Swearing in of new senators. Communication by the President. Good morning, all. Firstly, I would like to thank Reverend William Higgs for admonishing us this morning. And I would also, in turn, like to say to Reverend Culmer to continue to enjoy her vacation in the beautiful island of Eleuthera. I just wish that I was there. I also, at this time, would like to acknowledge the Parliamentary summer students who are in the gallery with us, and they are accompanied by Mrs. Antoinette Clark, who is the Assistant Human Resources Manager for the House of Assembly. Also in the gallery, we have two graduates with us. Kyla Knowles, if you can just stand, and also Paris Hilton Adley. Yeah? And so I would just like, I guess, all of the students to stand and so that they can be recognized. Thank you very much. And thank you for everything that you're doing for the House of Assembly. And I know that this is the first day, and so I hope you have an enjoyable experience working under Mrs. Clark. Thank you so much. You may be seated. I would like to take this time to give my sympathies and respect to the families of three outstanding Bahamians who in their own unique way played a major part in molding and shaping the modern Bahamas. That is Harvey Tynes, Casey, who practiced in Freeport, Grand Bahama, who had a most illustrious career, a constitutional legal eagle. He was a junior to the late Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield in the historic citizenship case of Thomas Darcy Ryan in the late 1970s. Mr. Tynes, able and eloquently advocate, and has always been a upright individual and human of good character. His daughter also once served in the honorable chamber, in his honorable chamber. Secondly, the distinguished accountant, Mr. William Bill Wallace, said goodbye. Bill Wallace practiced for years with the late, most illustrious Basil Sands in his practice. And thirdly, finally, thousands of Bahamians from every strata of society turned out on Saturday to lay to rest Keith DeCosta, a career civil servant and a lifelong Saxon, right up my alley, who is, in his own quiet style, showed us how humility and decency can make a hero. The Father Marcion Cooper, Peter Park, in Mason's edition, remembered Cisco, as he affectionately called, through the night, and many churches said special prayer for Cisco and paid tribute to his faithfulness. May their souls rest in peace. I would also like to extend a heartfelt congratulations to Senator the Honorable Ronald Duncombe on the successful closing ceremony for entry 3 of Next Gen, Young Men's Mentorship Program. This remarkable initiative was just not, or is just not, about mentorship. It's about nation building, and which is, in fact, what Senator Duncombe and his team are doing. Through structured sessions focused on leadership, discipline, self-respect, and purpose, Next Gen is equipping young men across the Bahamas with the tools they need to rise, lead, and thrive. Entry 3 cohort of young men was truly impressive, Senator Duncombe, a reflection of what's possible when we invest in our youth with intention and consistency. The sneaker ball on Saturday, if you missed it, you missed the time, on Friday, I beg your pardon. If you missed it, you missed a good time. It was absolutely amazing, and I was proud to witness it and support Senator Duncombe in his important work. Your dedication to mentorship and youth empowerment is changing lives, sir. Yes, we are proud of the work you're doing, Senator Duncombe, and I would just say to please keep going, keep it up, keep pushing, pushing the standard higher every single entry, and keep pouring into the next generation. Thank you so much, sir. Message from the Governor General. Message from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas number 42. Message to the Honorable the President and Honorable Members of the Senate from the Speaker and Representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to make provisions for the registration of titles to land and for dealings in land so registered and for purposes connected therewith. A bill for an act to provide for the systematic adjudication of rights and interests in land within the Bahamas, the demarcation of boundaries, and matters connected therewith. House of Assembly, Nassau, 16th July 2025. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker. Bahamas number 43. Message to the Honorable the President and Honorable Members of the Senate from the Speaker and Representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bill and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Segregated Accounts Companies Act. House of Assembly, Nassau, 23rd July 2025. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following: the miscellaneous written law rectification number 3, order 2025, the electricity tariff rate for electricity services order 2025, the Supreme Court enforcement of orders and awards of the Industrial Tribunal Amendment Rules 2025, and the Matrimonial Causes Amendment Rules 2025.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents do lie on the table. Second reading of bill. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copies of the following: the Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information Amendment Regulations 2025, the Customs Management Amendment Number 3 Regulations 2025, the Customs Management Amendment Number 4 Regulations 2025, the Fisheries Resources, Jurisdiction, and Conservation Amendment Number 2 Regulations 2025, the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2028, 2030, 2033, 2034, 2044, and 2054 Directions 2025, and the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2027, 2031, 2032, 2034, 2044, and 2054 Directions 2025.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents do lie on the table. Further reading?
None, Mr. President.
Second reading of, okay. Communication by senators. Questions, answers to questions, presentation of petitions, appointment of select committees, report of select committees, first reading of bills.
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time a bill for an act to amend the Parliamentary Elections Act.
Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time and seconded, and tabled, a bill for an act to amend the Parliamentary Election Act. As many as are in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The bill,
Ayes have it, order that,
the ayes have it. The bill, order that the bill be read for first time.
a bill for an act to amend the Parliamentary Elections Act.
Further first reading of bills.
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to continue the National Health Insurance Plan and Fund established and existing under the National Health Insurance Act 2016, to extend the benefits under the plan and to provide as a minimum standard health benefits and other benefits to persons presently enrolled in the plan and to persons eligible and enrolled after the commencement of this act, to validate all acts done under the existing plan and fund, to repeal and replace the National Health Insurance Act 2016 and for connected purposes.
Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time. The National Health Insurance Bill 2025. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The bill will be read for the first
Order
time.
that the bill be read.
Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to continue the National Health Insurance Plan and fund established and existing under the National Health Insurance Act 2016 to extend the benefits under the plan, to provide as a minimum standard health benefits and other benefits to persons presently enrolled in the plan and to persons eligible and enrolled after the commencement of this act, to validate all acts done under the existing plan and fund, to repeal and replace the National Health Insurance Act 2016 and for connected purposes.
Further reading.
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time a bill for an act to amend the Pharmacy Act.
Been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time. The Pharmacy Amendment Bill 2025. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Pharmacy Act.
Any further reading of bills?
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to repeal the Dental Act, Chapter 226, and the replacement thereof, to provide for the continuation of the Dental Council, to provide for the registration and licensing of dentists and dental auxiliaries, to provide for continuing education, to regulate the practice of dentistry, and for connected matters.
Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time, the Dental Professions Bill 2025. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The bill be read, order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to repeal the Dental Act, Chapter 226, and the replacement thereof, to provide for the continuation of the Dental Council, to provide for the registration and licensing of dentists and dental auxiliaries, to provide for the continuing education, to regulate the practice of dentistry, and for connected matters.
Further.
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to repeal the National Insurance Chronic Diseases Prescription Drug Act, Chapter 350A, and to provide for the establishment of a new fund under the control and management of the National Health Insurance Authority to supply patients suffering from specified chronic diseases with safe, effective, and economical prescription drugs and medical supplies, and to improve the accessibility to and affordability of prescription drugs and medical supplies.
Is there a seconder? Second. It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time, National Health Insurance Specified Chronic Diseases Prescription Drug Fund Bill 2025. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to repeal the National Insurance Chronic Disease Prescription Drugs Fund, Act Chapter 250A, and to provide for the establishment of a new fund under the control and management of the National Health Insurance Authority to supply patients suffering from specified chronic diseases with safe, effective, and economical prescription drugs and medical supplies, and to improve the accessibility to and affordability of prescription drugs and medical supplies.
Further first reading.
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to repeal and replace the Segregated Accounts Companies Act.
Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded that the Segregated Accounts Companies Bill 2025 be read for the first time. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to repeal and replace the Segregated Accounts Companies Act.
Further first reading.
Yes, Mr. President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Protected Areas Fund Act.
Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded that the bill be read for the first time. The Bahamas Protected Areas Fund Amendment Bill 2025. As many as are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Protected Areas Fund Act.
Further first reading.
Yes, Mr. President, we had previously read for the first time the Registered Land Bill 2025 and the Land Adjudication Bill 2025. These were passed in that other place in the House of Assembly with amendments to the versions that were originally laid. And so what we're seeking to do now with the concurrence of the side opposite, Mr. President, is to withdraw the Registered Land Bill 2025 and the Land Adjudication Bill 2025 previously laid and replace them with these two versions that include the amendments that were made in the House with the concurrence, of course, of the side opposite.
Yes. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
No objections, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further first reading.
We thank the side opposite for their concurrence, Mr. President.
Yes. Thank you. Further first reading.
There are none at this time, Mr. President.
Okay. second reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan. Ryan the Lion, Pender, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Remember the days, Mr. President, when I used to roar from those rally stages when they called me Ryan the Lion, just as you did. Those were great days down in Lizzie, I must say. Some of us move on, though. Some of us move on. I enjoy being appointed.
Elected.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning.
And good morning to all of the students in the gallery. Today I rise to move for the second reading of the Registered Land Bill 2025, which will be debated as a compendium along with the Land Adjudication Bill 2025. These two pieces of important legislation will establish a framework for registered land in the Bahamas. Mr. President, as you would know, the introduction of a system of registered land in the Bahamas has been delayed for more than 6 decades.
Yes.
And the bills before you, we seek to finally attain the objective of establishing a system of registered land in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This goal has been explored since at least 1960, before we were independent as a country, some 65 years ago, with the release of a white paper on the establishment of a systematic registration of title and land and to replace the separate investigation of title. This was back in 1960, this white paper was prepared. Draft bills were even prepared in 1960, but were never passed. We saw community-specific legislation to try to regularize title in areas such as the Land Title Carmichael Village Act, for example, which was a specific piece of legislation for a specific area of land, Carmichael Village, to regularize the title. There were also draft bills prepared in 2010, yet they didn't progress either. This is all in addition to the numerous studies and numerous reports that have been conducted over the last decades. There was a housing needs report in 1984 that alluded to the need for registered land to assist in the provision of housing in the Bahamas. There was a state of housing report in 2016 that alluded to a similar conclusion. In 2003, a report was prepared by the noted Director of Lands, Tex Turnquest, which called for an effective adjudication and parcel registration system with the goal of implementing a land registry. That was in 2003. Then there was the all-encompassing report titled The Land Use Policy and Administration Project Completion Report 2010. Very long. We call that the LUPAP report. And that was financed by the IDB. And it was a very comprehensive report. And for all of you, all of these reports and all of these studies have been in the public domain on the consultation website for the last year. The LUPAP report was regarded as one of the most comprehensive reports on land in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And again, that recommended an adjudication and registration framework for land in the Bahamas. Like I said, these studies, these reports, and the draft bills have been in the public domain on the public consultation website for more than a year. In fact, it was last year's budget communication where I announced the launch of the public consultation website. We discussed these bills and various reports leading up to this process with the public, with the professions that are involved, such as the Bar Association, the real estate agents, other professionals, banks, lenders, soliciting feedback from everybody along the way. This feedback has all been considered in the bills we debate today. We also visited regional land registration agencies to learn from them, to learn from their mistakes, to learn where you could become more efficient, and to take on their recommendations as we now create a land registry in the Bahamas. The findings from these visits are incorporated into these bills. The consultation process for these bills has been thorough and extensive. I note, however, the opposition never wrote in or thought it worthy to participate in the consultation. And that's okay. Maybe they thought it was perfect. And therefore they may not have much to say today. But one would ask, and it's an important question to ask, after all of these reports over the years, after all of the draft bills, after all of the studies, why didn't the former administrations proceed with this? In 2010, for example, the Honorable Byron Woodside, then the Minister of State for Lands and Local Government, at the time announced the Land Adjudication Bill 2010 and announced other bills to come to regularize land in the Bahamas. Of course, we know nothing happened in 2010. In 2021, my predecessor, the Honorable Carl Bethel KC, the Attorney General at the time, advised that he had been asked by Dr. Hubert Minnis, the then Prime Minister, to move ahead with the legal reforms that would ultimately result in the ownership of every scrap of land in the Bahamas being recorded on a central database accessible to all citizens and residents. That was the charge given to the former Attorney General. We know nothing happened in the last administration either. Consistent with the F&M way, they're good at talking, but they're not good at doing. The PLP does. We are a government of action. And when it comes to land adjudication and land registration, we will do. There's no question about it. We will do. So I guess when the members of the opposition in that other place speak about how difficult it is going to be, some say, well, this really isn't a big deal, right? Others said it's going to take so long, what's the use of the process? I guess they were just expressing what their party, the F&M, does. We should talk some more, and we should talk some more, and we should talk some more, but never get it done. That's what I assume that they were advocating for in that other place. Mr. President, imagine this. Imagine this. Imagine if the F&M administration in 2010, when they had an entire minister with a portfolio for land, actually would have advanced the land registration regime that they brought forward. We would be 15 years into a land registration system today. 15 years. The Bahamas would have been a different place when you talk about land ownership in this country. 15 years of a land registration system. It would have been before the Planning and Subdivision Act. Imagine that. So imagine now, all of those subdivision plans under the Planning and Subdivision Act would have automatically been registered in the Registry of Land, and the Commonwealth of the Bahamas would be a completely different place today if they actually went forward in 2010. Yet, we find ourselves here today, an administration here actually getting it done. Mr. President, the need for change is real. It's real. Because the state of land holdings in the Bahamas, and we have lawyers around this table who could speak on it, is precarious, it's confused, and is far less than desirable. The LUPAP report highlighted some key factors for consideration, such as overlapping of claims to rights of land, where two or more people claim to own the same land, uncertainty regarding the ownership of land. These are all factors that have our current system less than desirable. This is the result of the fact that title deeds are not required to be recorded, and the questionable reliability of the description of the real property within the deeds which are actually recorded. This also allows, or could allow, the same parcel of land to be sold multiple times using different descriptions. Imagine that. A title nightmare. I'm sure you've seen this. You're a deputy chair of your real property section in your firm, a notorious commercial firm in this country, and you see it. I'm sure you do. Mr. President, I would highlight you, but you're sitting in a different position right now. The high transaction costs in the formal sale of land are also highlighted in the LUPAP report as being a negative factor of our current regime. Listen to this, the LUPAP report, again, anybody interested in land should go online and read the LUPAP report. It's very comprehensive. The LUPAP report also found that 15% of the parcels in this country were in dispute. 15% of the parcels in dispute. This is particularly significant, but there is, of course, the possibility, the real possibility, that the actual percentage of land which is in dispute could be higher, because the existence of a dispute might not come to light or crystallize until a party actually moves to try to clear and develop the land or sell the land, and then disputes materialize. These disputes have significant impact on the social and economic development of the Bahamas. That cannot be argued. For example, there are too many cases where individuals, acting on the advice of an attorney, have paid monies out, but have found themselves without the land that they intended to acquire. That has happened in our country. Accepting the long-held view that land is an important basis of wealth, and those in the gallery, I know you're all still young, but the most important and most likely the most valuable purchase that you will make in your lifetime is going to be a piece of land. Going to be a piece of land. So we accept the long-held view that land is an important basis of wealth. We have many individuals and families whose wealth cannot be accessed because of disputes or irregularities in the land. So we ask the question, how then do we transition to a more reliable and cost-effective way to secure property rights? How do we bring more certainty and finality to land ownership? This inequitable situation and these abuses support the point that it is beyond time for a land registry in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. In fact, the Privy Council, as far back as 1969, pre-independence, noted that the situation of landholding in the Bahamas and what I have just spoken as the factors that are adverse factors to our structure is the result that we do not have and have not adopted a system of registered land. The Privy Council made that observation in 1969. 1969. Look, the proof is around us. Let's look at Cayman Island. The Land Registry Procedural Manual of Cayman Islands, which was published in 2010. This would be the same year that they would have said that they were moving forward, right? Land registration in the Cayman Islands brought certainty and finality to many questions of land ownership and was the foundation for the creation of the confidence necessary to allow for much of the economic development of the Cayman Islands in the last 2 decades of the 20th century. They are attributing a basis of land registration as a stimulus for economic development of the country. We will do the same here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We will do the same here. The essence of registered title is that all pertinent details of ownership relating to land is recorded on one register that is maintained by the government as a land registry. Once land is registered, the register itself is kept permanently updated. So it is a permanent record of title of land. There is a duty on the subsequent purchaser to register on its interest on the registry. So you follow the sales and the dispositions of the property on the registry. A person purchasing land has only to review the central register to find all information about the land he intends to purchase. The registered owner owns the parcel absolutely. Absolutely. This is compared to the system we have today of unregistered land. And so let me tell you about that system a little bit so you can have some context. The system is based upon common law principles. So it doesn't have a registry. It's purely based on common law principles. Under this system, a purchaser must investigate title by reviewing the back title deeds to satisfy him or herself that a chain of title of the proposed vendor provides title that is what we call good and marketable. Statute law in the Bahamas requires that a purchaser proves a good root of title, so they follow the title of that property through all subsequent sales, mortgages, any instrument that has an interest in that piece of property, all along the way to prove a good root of title going back 30 years. So you have to do an analysis of every sale for 30 years root of title, and if there's any discrepancy in that 30-year root of title, then the lawyer won't issue a clean title opinion that is good and marketable. That's called, we've heard it, a cloud on the title, right? A cloud on the title. So imagine over 30 years, make a spelling mistake, right? You don't record a satisfaction of a mortgage. That's not on the record. So then the question is, was the mortgage ever satisfied? These are all what we call clouds on the title that have caused the discrepancies and issues in our system today. The title search is usually undertaken by an attorney on behalf of the purchaser, if applicable, the mortgagee. Right? Because the one lending the money and holding a security interest in that piece of property needs to know that the title is good as well, because it's backing up their loan. Right? This process is repeated each time the land is conveyed, over and over and over, adding time and expense to a transaction involving property. Under a system of registered land, which is what we are debating today, all parcels are clearly identified and all information relating it is on the register. The accuracy of the register is guaranteed by the government of the Bahamas. There will be no need to trace title for 30 years anymore. No need. Instead, land buyers will rely on the government and not an attorney to ascertain all the rights and interests in land. It's a historical transformation, especially when you think about the system we are actually under today. The system of land registration in the country will, for the foreseeable future, run parallel to, so you would have registered land and you would have an unregistered land system as we move properties onto the registry. So you're going to run two systems in parallel at the outset, right? Hybrid system. and then move to move properties onto the registry. Because remember, if the government is guaranteeing the title to the land on the registry, we have to be sure that the title is clean, right? And it's good title. But you only have to be sure once, and then it's good throughout. Registration will afford commercial confidence to vendors and purchasers of land, significantly reducing the incidence of litigation of land titles, and ensuring that there is transparency and independence in the investigation of titles by adjudicators. Purchasers can purchase and vendors can sell land knowing that no one else will have a claim to that land once it's on the register. That's transformative. It's transformative. I would venture to say every one of us around this table knows somebody who's either had a dispute over ownership of land, has had a cloud on the title that needs to be cleaned up. You hope you could clean it up, right? Everybody around the table I know knows somebody or is themselves a victim of the system we have today. The Registered Land Bill seeks to ensure a formal record of ownership, of possession, and other rights in land. The companion bill to the Registered Land Bill is the Land Adjudication Bill. And this bill is the foundation of how the government will assure itself that the title is good before it goes on the register. Because remember, we're guaranteeing that. We're guaranteeing the good title. So, land adjudication is a way of resolving land disputes and establishing clear titles for recording in the land register to be guaranteed by the government. Together, the bills will establish a secure and publicly accessible record of land ownership and will facilitate transparent, reliable, and accessible land administration across the length and breadth of the entire Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The bills are benchmarked on the land adjudication and registration legislation of Barbados, Cayman Islands, Jamaica, which, suffice it to say, none of those have been successfully challenged in the courts, for all those who may raise questions of legality. We heard discussion in that other place about implementation and some of the experiences of other jurisdictions. Primarily, I think the member of St. Anne's compared Jamaica's process, right? But we have visited both the Cayman Islands and Jamaica to meet and to learn about their experiences. So we're not doing this, blind, and we don't think we all know the answers. We want to learn from other people and what they've done. For example, Jamaica operates a dual system of land tenure, comprising both registered and unregistered land. Jamaica started their land registration as a voluntary system. And so when there's criticism from the member from St. Anne's about the length of time it's taken Jamaica and they still haven't been successful, well, we go down there and we learn from that. And that's primarily because they started on a voluntary system, right? In practice, the voluntary system has proven to be inefficient and underutilized. The associated expenses of a voluntary system discouraged many landowners from participating. And the process was further hampered by a limited pool of qualified referees, leading to delays. Right? That was, and we spoke about this with them. Moreover, the ad hoc selection of parcels for registration contributed to a lack of systematic progress in regularizing land across Jamaica. So, for example, in a voluntary system, in an ad hoc selection method, they would pick a parcel of land here, and a parcel of land here, and a parcel of land here, and referee it or adjudicate it and put it on the parcel because it's voluntary and it was ad hoc. Well, that doesn't suit the purpose where you're trying to get as much as you can on the register, right? We intend on avoiding a voluntary system in the Bahamas. We will have a compulsory system to accelerate the registration of parcels of land in the Bahamas. It's called systematic adjudication. And systematic adjudication allows us to commence land registration in areas of the country where there may be fewer land disputes, right? Because much of the surveying has been done, the lots have been identified. For example, we don't have any of our colleagues from Freeport today, but Freeport. Oh, there you are. I'm sorry. I was looking across there. He moved. We have one of our colleagues from Freeport here today. And Senator, you would know in Freeport that the land system is actually parcelized very well. You would be able to get Freeport up on a land registry in no time, right? In no time. The adjudication would be easy, right? It's all parcelized already. Yeah. So having a systematic adjudication allows you to select these blocks of areas that you know that you should be able to properly adjudicate and put on a registry, and do it. For example, many of the subdivisions in New Providence that are relatively new under the Planning and Subdivisions Act should be easy to put on the register, right? Because they've gone through a rigorous process through lands and surveys, and you should be able to put those on a register and adjudicate that title fairly easily. Old communities such as Blair, for example. Let's use Blair as an example. Although not a recent community, but very established. The title's good generally in Blair, and you should be able to adjudicate those. So these are examples of, I heard the member of parliament from, where's Kwesi from? East Grand Bahama, right? Speak about this in the other place. How are we going to choose it? And what are we going to, is it going to be ad hoc? Is it going to be political? I don't know how land registration becomes political, but that was a question he asked, right? That's the question he has. We will do systemic adjudication in parcelized areas as a start. We will then have a series of adjudicators that are focused on the difficult areas as well. We're not saying we're not going to do those, but having adjudicators that work on the easy ones and then having core adjudication teams that are working on the difficult ones allows you to populate the registry while dealing with the vexing issue in parallel of these difficult title adjudications and administrations. So that's the plan. And the plan is to have multiple adjudication panels to look at senior practitioners in the private sector to come on as adjudicators and help us adjudicate these. Ideally, I would start with 5 panels as a minimum, right? I would put 3 in Nassau, 1 in Freeport, and 1 that systemically works through the Family Islands, at least in the beginning, and then you grow it. And so we call on the Bar Association and we call on senior practitioners to help. Senator, when we're in power in the next administration, you can come and be an adjudicator and help us out. A very, very senior established lawyer. He'd be a perfect adjudicator for this type of practice. We also believe, Mr. President, that the Jamaican experience reinforces our belief that moving to land registration should be done immediately on an online digital platform base. Right? So all of this will be put on a digital registry platform and the adjudication and the administration. In fact, ideally, we would be able to tie into the new cross system at the Registrar General, which is the Deeds and Documents Registry that is actually launching this week. I hope all my attorney colleagues got their invites. It's launching this week. And that would tie systemically into the deeds and documents. Hopefully, the registries would talk together, and that would help facilitate the land registry. And we hope it can tie into our car system, which is the company registry, so when you're doing transactions and you want good standing certificates and all of the due diligence, if it's in a corporate form, you can automatically pull from one registry to the next. Those are some of the things with a digital platform that we're thinking of that will help facilitate the process. We'll be releasing shortly an RFP for the provision of the digital land registration platform. You'll see that coming out. All of the developers, I know there's some developers that have already expressed interest to me in wanting to be part of this. We'll issue an RFP because there's a number of people interested. We would implement a comprehensive digital platform to facilitate the registration of land. Yes, we know this is a big project. We know it's a big project. And we know it's a complex project. And the implementation is going to be complex. But we're not scared of complex things. We could walk and chew gum. We are confident that we will get it done. In fact, my goal, I always like to set goals, right? I remember an old political mentor of mine used to say, Ryan, speak it into existence, right? And keep speaking about it, and speak it into existence, and speak it into existence. And so you got to speak it into existence. My goal would be to start land adjudications in the Q1 of 2026. That means we have 6 months to build the registry, to develop the platform, to have our staff, to train our staff, to get adjudication panels formulated, and to start the process. It's aggressive. But we like aggressive things. In conclusion, Mr. President, I want to thank the Land Reform Committee that has done a tremendous work and a yeoman's task on this project. The Land Reform Committee was co-chaired, yes, give them a round of applause, it was co-chaired by Minister Leon Lundy and Charlene Smith, a longtime advocate for a land registration system in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. In fact, I read a speech she gave in 2011 to a Business Outlook where she was advocating strongly about this platform. That was only 1 year after they were supposed to do it. The Land Reform Committee was made up of public sector, relevant public sector personalities, and private sector personalities. It was nonpartisan, non-political, had senior practitioners across the archipelago be part of it. So I want to thank them. It was a lot of work. I want to thank all of those people who participated in the year-long public consultation of this. Public consultations are difficult, right? And getting people to respond to a consultation process sometimes is frustrating, to be honest with you. And so for those who participated, I want to thank you for participating. They're important. We found the comments and we found the input very valuable in formulating this process, and we wanted to make sure we got it right. I'm very proud of where we are today. I look forward to transforming the system of land and title in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I really look forward to that. This is a redefining exercise that people vote governments in to do. That's what this is. We're not tinkering around the edges. We're putting in a foundational and fundamental reform that has been needed for generations in this country, that others didn't want to do or couldn't do. But the country needs it. Our people need it. Our economic empowerment needs it. Our citizens' wealth, their family wealth, unleashing that economic opportunity for all in land, needs it. Needs it. The only ones that may be a little upset are those, like my colleagues to my right and left, who will now no longer be able to charge these exorbitant fees for 30 years of root of title. But that's okay. I understand the Bar Association is working on something. The effects will be far-reaching and bring equity, transparency, and empowerment to all. That is our goal. That is why we govern. That is what we do. That is what we do. So thank you, colleagues. Thank you, and I so move for the second reading of the Registered Land Bill 2025. Thank you.
Is there a seconder?
Mr. President, I rise today with great purpose to contribute to the debate on two landmark pieces of legislation, the Land Adjudication Bill of 2025 and the Registered Land Bill of 2025, two bills that represent not only historic legal reform, but a bold stride toward economic empowerment, land security, and generational equity in the Bahamas. Mr. President, this is long overdue. And let me be clear. This is the first administration to not only speak about land reform, but to finally bring it to fruition. While many administrations before us have talked about it, consulted, piloted ideas, we've tabled, debated, and we're delivering. And we're doing so with precision, with fairness, and with the understanding that land is not just an economic asset, it is legacy. Mr. President, I speak today not only as a legislator and as a citizen of this great Commonwealth, but as someone who has firsthand experience in navigating the complexities and in many ways the dysfunction of our current land system. As an attorney whose primary practice has been real estate for nearly 20 years, I cannot overstate how critical these reforms are to our nation's progress. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, and I've seen the downright disheartening when it comes to Bahamian land transactions, especially in our family islands. Too often, transactions fall apart because of bad titles. I've worked on many real estate transactions over my career where you can clearly see who has used the land, who's improved the land, who occupies the land, but yet we cannot confirm that they have clear documentary title to it. As attorneys, we do our best to resolve the title issues with the information we have, relying on affidavits, survey plans, but in the absence of a centralized government-guaranteed register, we are always piecing it all together over the last 30 years. Far too often, as real estate attorneys, we get a bad name for simply taking too long, we're blamed for the delays, or we're labeled as being overly cautious or obstructive. But the truth is, we're often dealing with issues in an antiquated system, and it's fundamentally uncertain. When as prudent attorneys, we're simply doing our best to ensure that our clients' interests are protected and that we don't get sued. I've seen dishonest parties exploit these weaknesses and gaps in our law by filing quieting actions in bad faith and then successfully quieting the land simply because they had the resources to fight things out in courts. I've seen families misled into signing over their rights because they trusted the wrong person. I've seen cases where people sell and resell land that they know they don't own. Mr. President, with these bills, we are addressing these challenges head on. The Land Adjudication Bill of 2025 finally gives us a clear, evidence-based process for determining land ownership. Through local tribunals supported by trained demarcators, community assessors, and legal adjudicators, we'll be able to identify, investigate, and confirm land claims on the ground, not in isolation, not in courtrooms that feel distant to our family island communities, but in the settlements where these disputes actually live. This bill empowers the minister to declare specific areas of land in the Bahamas as adjudication areas by way of a public notice. Once an area is declared, a structured process for land investigation, boundary demarcation, and title confirmation are initiated under the supervision of the adjudicator, who's appointed by the Governor General,
and who has at least 10 years' experience in real estate law and conveyancing. This is critical that we have not just a senior attorney at the bar, but one well-versed in the intricacies of real estate law in the Bahamas. The adjudicator then is empowered to select 2 assessors with knowledge and history of the specific adjudication area, and together they will form the land adjudication tribunal for that specific area. The tribunal will be supported by demarcators, surveyors, and records officers to investigate and delineate parcels. This team also has to comprise qualified persons. The demarcator must be a registered and licensed surveyor with at least 10 years' experience. The records officer must be an attorney with at least 3 years' experience in real estate law, and the surveyor must be registered and licensed as a land surveyor. Once the notice of adjudication is issued, every person with an interest in land in an adjudication area has 90 days to make a claim. Upon completion of the demarcation and investigation phase, which includes investigating all claims, the records officer will prepare an adjudication record for each parcel of land, which is supported by adjudication maps prepared by surveyors, which reflect the demarcated boundaries. Each record then sets out the name of the persons entitled to the land, the nature of their interest, be it absolute or provisional, the boundaries and size of the parcel, any associated rights, be it any easements, leases, etc., and any supporting evidence. If the records officer is satisfied that that person either has a good documentary title to the parcel or that person is in open and peaceful possession of a parcel of land, the records officer will record that person as the owner of the parcel and declare his or her title to be absolute. So if you've lived on a parcel of land for, say, 12 years privately, or 30 years if it's crown land, or 60 years if it's land on the foreshore, and you've done so openly without challenge, maintaining and improving the land, then the law will now recognize what the community already knows, that the land is yours. Mr. President, this demarcation process is rooted in local knowledge and historical truth, not just legal gymnastics, and it recognizes possession as a basis of ownership. This is so important, especially for our family islands. This will end the years of suffering of so many who've been locked out of financing opportunities. They've been unable to sell and unable to pass land to their children because they could not get clear title. Let's consider for a moment a community in Inagua, where families have occupied land for generations upon generations, but they lack deeds. Under this bill, they can now access a structured adjudication process to formalize their ownership without the risk of exploitation. Mr. President, another noteworthy component of the land adjudication bill is that the safeguards it puts in place with respect to civil suits to limit conflicts with the adjudication process. No action relating to land in an adjudication section shall be commenced after the publication of a notice of adjudication unless the adjudicator has given written notice to the same. And the hearing of any civil action which has not been determined before such adjudication is commenced unless the adjudicator otherwise direct shall be stayed pending final adjudication. Finally, Mr. President, once an adjudication record is complete, it is made available for public inspection for a period of 90 days. And during that time, anyone can lodge an objection. After these objections are resolved and any corrections or alterations are made, the adjudication record is made final. The final record is then transmitted to the Registrar of Lands to be entered into the land register established under the Registered Land Act of 2025. Any person aggrieved by any act or decision of the adjudicator on points of law or procedural irregularity may appeal to the Supreme Court and, if necessary, the Court of Appeal. Mr. President, the second bill, the Registered Land Bill of 2025, is the natural and necessary follow-through. Adjudication tells us who owns the land, and registration guarantees it. This bill creates a centralized land registry by assigning unique parcel IDs and issuing land certificates or certificates of lease that are conclusive and government-backed. The registry comprises the land registrar, which is again a conclusive record of land ownership and rights, and the registry map, which reflects the parcel boundaries, including volumetric divisions. The administration of the land registry will be vested in the Registrar of Lands. The registrar is appointed again by the Governor General and must have been a practicing attorney for at least 10 years. The registrar is supported by a deputy registrar who must have a minimum of 7 years practice experience and an assistant registrar who must have at least 5 years of practice experience. Mr. President, the land register shall comprise a register in respect of every parcel that has received a final certificate of adjudication and a register in respect of each lease required to be registered by the Registered Land Act. The register shall indicate whether the land is private or crown land, and if it is private land, whether the title is absolute or provisional. It shall include a brief description of the land or lease and a reference to any filed registry maps or plans. It should include the name of the person as the registered owner, and a note of every encumbrance and every right of adversely affecting the land or the lease. When a sale, transfer, or mortgage occurs, the register will of course need to be updated, and with this system, it can happen very quickly. Mr. President, this bill also provides legal clarity on land transfers resulting from death or bankruptcy, and it sets out various mechanisms to protect land interests. For example, cautions can be lodged by individuals or financial institutions who have an interest in land, and restrictions can be imposed by the registrar in cases of fraud or other valid reasons. Procedures are also in place for registering and safeguarding leases, along with provisions for the land reparcelation and the subdivision of land into estates or smaller parcels. Once entered into a land register, the ownership is no longer a matter of opinion or inference. It is a legal fact. That means we no longer have to go behind the title of the person who produces the land certificate. We no longer have to worry about missing documents, duplicate conveyances, or competing titles. This is the foundation upon which true wealth creation and generational stability can be built. The family in Eleuthera that finally gets their land regularized can now use it to finance education for their children, to expand their businesses, or to build a home. The land becomes more than just a legacy, it becomes leverage. I think of the family in Long Island seeking to develop on inherited family land. Once the title is registered, again, this is a conclusive indication of title, ending years of dispute and infighting over unclear documents or competing claims. Mr. President, this bill will also increase transparency by expanding the public's access to information, since any member of the general public will be able to search the land register themselves, provided they receive an official search certificate from the registrar. This will aid in improved clarity and record reliability, benefiting landholders, investors, and financial institutions alike. Mr. President, our existing framework is broken. Our land laws are some of the oldest in the region. They are patchworks, systems built for a time when land was owned by a few and access was limited. And they were never designed for our modern era, for the thousands of families on the Family Islands and New Providence who have been stewards of land without legal title, or for the investor seeking clarity and speed in transactions. I cannot tell you enough the level of confusion and frustration I get from clients when I simply have to explain that I have to search title going back 30 years. The Quieting Titles Act, while once a helpful tool, has long been a source of injustice for many Bahamians. It is too often used by those with means to dispossess those with history. It forces families to defend their ancestral land in expensive legal battles just to prove what everyone already knows. And many times, these families simply throw in the towel because they cannot afford to fight against someone who has the time and resources to tie their property up in litigation for years. Until now, the Bahamas has remained one of the last countries in the region without a proper registered land system. Jamaica has had registered land since 1889. Barbados, The Turks and Caicos, St. Lucia, and the Cayman Islands all have registered land systems. In doing my own research, I was surprised to see that in many of those registered land systems, those attorneys still charge much more than we charge here. The absence of this infrastructure in the Bahamas has left us in the shadows, creating uncertainty, delays, and mistrust. But now, under this administration, we are forging a new path forward and bringing our country in line with our Caribbean counterparts. As Prime Minister Davis said in his contribution in that other place a few weeks ago, land is not just a legal matter. It is a matter of justice and empowerment. And I echo that in this chamber today. He reminded us that these bills are about ending chaos, confusion, and exploitation, and about bringing transparency and accessibility to the heart of our land system. Mr. President, while I'm excited about these reforms, I certainly do not overlook the complexity in the process. But complexity is no excuse for complacency. Real reform takes time, but the reward is worth every step. Mr. President, land is wealth, and when land ownership is murky, the opportunities to build homes, start businesses, or secure loans is significantly diminished. These reforms will broaden access to land security, reduce fraud, and speed up economic activity, and finally unlock the potential of our family islands. Mr. President, I also wish to pause to formally commend the Attorney General and the Land Reform Committee for their tireless efforts over the past 2 years, which have been instrumental in bringing us to this pivotal moment in the modernization of our land system. We would have heard the AG talk about the research and all of the visits to these various countries in formulating this these two pieces of legislation. Their achievement was no easy task. It involved deep research of regional framework, extensive stakeholder consultations, and the careful drafting of forward-thinking legislation that rises to meet the demands of this current era. Mr. President, we stand today on the shoulders of pioneers, but we also walk forward with clear vision and intentionality. With these landmark bills, the Land Adjudication Bill and the Registered Land Bill, we are not just performing an overhaul of an outdated system. We are restoring fairness, transparency, and confidence in the very foundation of our nation, the land beneath our feet. Land for Bahamians has never been just property. It is heritage. It is where our children are raised, where our memories are rooted, and where our future can grow. For decades, real property in the Bahamas has been locked in uncertainty, plagued by generational disputes, fraudulent claims, and the inaccessibility of reliable records. But today, when we pass these bills, we are dignifying people's stories. We're giving clarity to confusion, truth to tradition, and security to sacrifice. This is land reform. This is transformational progress. And this is what good governance looks like. And with that being said, I proudly second the Land Adjudication Bill of 2025 and the Registered Land Bill of 2025. May God continue to bless our Honorable Prime Minister Davis and this administration as we continue to carry out this impactful work on behalf of the Bahamian people. May he grant us the wisdom, courage, and endurance as we continue to chart a more just and equitable future for Bahamians. And may God continue to bless the people of this great Commonwealth. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, before the Leader of Opposition Business commences his presentation, I move that the business of the Senate do sit beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do sit beyond the 1 o'clock hour. Many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The Senate will sit beyond the 1 o'clock hour. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to be here today as we debate these two very important pieces of legislation. In the Bahamas, they have been a long time coming. But I have to say to the Honorable Attorney General who says that the F&M good at talking, but not good at doing. I have to say that, you said that these bills were around, talk of land adjudication and land registry were around from the 1960s. Some people had the sense the 1800s, as we've just heard from the good senator. Your party has been in office for nearly 40 years. In the last few years, yeah, we have been in office, I believe, and actually you, to date, you've been in office for 39 years. We have been in office, I think, 3 full terms under Prime Minister Ingram. That's 15 years, and 4 years and 3 months under the last F&M administration. So, yeah. No, I'm only.
He distancing himself.
No, I'm only speaking. I'm only
Is he
speaking about the
distancing
free
himself?
national movement. I'm only speaking about the free national movement. And so when you, it is actually complimentary that you would compare us to your party, which has been in power for 40 years, right? To say what we have done and have not done in this wonderful country of ours. I wish to begin though by, Mr. Chairman, by thanking the Free National Movement's leadership and the Candidates Committee for reposing in me confidence to ratify me for the wonderful South Beach constituency. Yeah. And I'd also like to use this opportunity to thank the people of South Beach for the warm embrace that I have received thus far, Mr. Chairman, in that regard. It has been a wonderful experience thus far. They can see that we cleaned up the toilet on Bougainville Park, and the next day, beaches and parks were there. They painted it up and they closed it up, so we don't know what's inside. But we hope it'll be open soon to the public in South Beach, so that mothers and children, when they walk in the park and play in the park, which needs some repairs, ought to be done. We'd also like to extend condolences to the family of, I call him His Excellency, Harvey Tynes Casey, a wonderful man that I've had the opportunity to work with whilst at the AG's office. Obviously, he was on the opposite side most times with these constitutional matters that Justice Klein and I were a part of. He was a brilliant scholar, a contribution to his country and to his craft. I knew William Bill Wallace personally, an extraordinary accountant. When I first moved here, between living in Grantstown and South Beach, he frequented my uncle Kirk Smith, who had a gas station right there in Grantstown by the church in Hay Street. And they were lodge brothers. And so he was always very kind, very pleasant, and very encouraging. And I extend my condolences to his family. I also extend condolences to the families of those in Abaco who lost tragically those young men in Haiti. Despite what they may have been involved, allegedly involved in, they're still family, and they will be missed. And so we extend to you from this place, as we've done privately. I know the family in Sandy Point, where my wife is from, personally. So I extend to the Russells from this place a heartfelt condolences. Ronnie, I had to miss your sneakers ball, Senator Duncombe. Of course, I apologize to you, and I do so here now again. And after hearing the chairman speak about it, I know that I missed a wonderful time, because we can't speak enough about the good work that you were doing with the young men. The students that are working with us in the parliamentary office this year, we thank you. And you know, it was a nice lesson from Reverend Higgs, right, who talked about Adonai and doing in office what you should be able to live with when you're out of office. A former prime minister from our side often said to us, and says to us continually when you speak with him at times, when you're in office, make policies and laws that you are able to live with. Ingram, when you are out of office, and that is sage advice, and the advice that we got from the Reverend this morning. You know, Mr. Chairman, it is our considered view that these land registration bills are widely supported by the Bahamian community, and despite, you know, the barbs and the picking and nitpicking on the other side, right? We by and large, we agree. We agree that this is the right way to go for the Bahamas. It is the best thing for all of us. We also appreciate that, you know, as indicated by an attorney just in this now, she did the research and found that the fees are not less because you have a land registry. And so we want to allay the fears of those in practice, right, in the industry. Huh? Yeah, you know. So allow me at the outset to say that we support the principles of land registry designed to mitigate against what we deem to be bad actors in this very important industry in the country, particularly those who seek to, and you've heard some of that, who seek to deprive the most vulnerable among us of what is rightfully ours. You know, we can't continue to simply ignore those who knowingly assume that they can come and build on Crown land in the Bahamas without permissions. And we've seen far too many of that. Both administrations that have been in office are equally as guilty for allowing it. It seems like we just stand in something in the law we call laches and acquiescence. We just stand and watch in the face of it as these, you know, unpermitted, non-permitted, illegal structures go up, and then we suddenly find ourselves in a place where we hear from the Bahamian people who say how difficult it is for them to get a piece of Crown land to build on. And strangers could come to their country and do so with impunity. But for there to be confidence in the system, there must be consistency. The rules must apply equally and to all. You cannot come here and disrespect and flaunt our laws, while Bahamians and others who come here to do it the right way try to get it done. We've heard it said here today as well, purchasing land and building on it, be it a home or a business or even a church as a collective does from time to time, will likely be the largest investment Bahamians will make, you know, in their lifetime. So currently, the professionals and others involved in the land transaction trade, they readily acknowledge that there are historical and systemic issues in the administration of land in the Bahamas that must be corrected, and hopefully these bills will get us on a positive path to doing so. Several natural challenges in land dealings include issues related to property rights, you know, land information, And the transaction itself can be tedious and long, and clients often don't appreciate all of the loops that you have to jump through to ensure that they have a clean piece of document that won't come back to haunt them a few years, or us, lawyers who practice in conveyancing and law of property, they won't come back to haunt us down the road, because we have seen instances where one parcel of land had been sold over and repeatedly. Sometimes it's not knowingly, but it happens. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Disputes can lead to delays and fraudulent activities, among them. It is not uncommon to hear these stories as you move about. Additionally, inadequate land administration leads to poorly maintained land records, uncertainty of titles, and avoidable litigation, and more. Mr. Chairman, the Land Adjudication Bill 2025 and the Registered Land Bill 2025 are intended to address many of these issues. And we pray Godspeed, and that we're able to have some good documents entered onto the register, and people can have confidence when they go to do land transactions. These include, but are by no means limited to, the cost of the land transaction, some of the benefits, readily verifiable ownership of land and simplified conveyancing process, a more efficient and secure land market, and much more. Mr. Chairman, a properly managed and functioning land registration system will also serve to inspire confidence and reliability of marketable titles in our country. As such, we support modernizing land dealings in our country, but at the end of the day, such a system must be built on a foundation of unequivocal and absolute trust, transparency, and integrity if it's going to be embraced by Bahamians and foreigners who conduct land transactions in the Bahamas. The business of land dealing has become stigmatized by stories of corruption, underhanded dealings, which scare off potential transactions in many of our family islands and elsewhere in the country. And so we hope by passing these pieces of legislation that we will inspire people to know that you are getting a good, clean, marketable title, and you don't have to be afraid of our system or of someone coming to you 10 years down the road and challenging you for your presence on a piece of property that you rightly belong to, or honor, or not belong to. The Land Adjudication Bill will hopefully address the long-standing challenges associated with land disputes, unclear ownership, boundary ambiguities, and informal occupation of land by establishing an orderly, efficient, and transparent system for the identification, demarcation, and recording of land ownership and interest. I would prefer the legislation to use verbiage or language like illegal occupation of land, instead of informal occupation of land. But it's just a matter of semantics, I suppose. I've seen in many parts of this country with the establishment of the irregular communities, these are illegal occupation, illegal occupiers. They're not informal, in my mind, they are illegal. And we must continue to call them what they are, illegal, irregular communities that were built in the Bahamas on Crown property, most of them, on private property without permissions, right? And so we must hold then ourselves as a government accountable, and we must also hold private landowners accountable for allowing these things to happen on their property. Irregular communities, as opposed to this palatable language espoused by NGOs and others concerned with settling illegal migrants and others. As foreign minister, I had cause to remove from this country an operative of the Human Rights Commission who, after Dorian, went into North Abaco and facilitated the rebuilding of such communities. Yes, literally facilitated it. And I summoned him, and I said, you are persona non grata, myself along with the Minister of Immigration, Elizabeth Johnson at the time, and we got the cabinet to agree that he be recalled from this country. And he was under the the impression that, of course, I'm helping migrants. I said, but you know, you can help migrants, but follow the laws of our country. I said, you must leave forthwith, because we do not encourage law breaking. And you saw what happened in Dorian. You saw what happened in fires in some of these communities. The trucks can't get in to put out the fires, Mr. Chairman. You know, you saw the loss of life in Dorian. And, you know, the tale is there to be told. So this fellow was openly and deliberately encouraging and rebuilding irregular communities. We can't tolerance that. We have no more tolerance for that. We must become, on both sides, I believe, more aggressive and not allowing these things to take root because of the law and because of the inherent dangers associated with such communities. We must. You know, Mr. Chairman, it often amazes me how slack we can be with those who operated with impunity in this country of ours, on the one hand, and how tough we can be on Bahamians trying to hammer out a reasonable existence in their own country on the other hand. And we come to the place now where some Bahamians have taken it upon themselves, if they get a letter back from Lands and Survey saying, I acknowledge your application. You know, I see the ministers laughing. Some Bahamians have taken it upon themselves to say, I'm going to build as well. Now, we don't encourage illegality in any form, but we understand what Bahamians are thinking when they come to that place and say, you know, you acknowledge my letter for my application, I'm going to build. Because I've seen others come here without a letter of acknowledgement and proceed to build and do so quite, you know, effectively, right? Now, I don't know if the government is able to answer this, but I recently saw a letter, and this is to do with land and properties. I recently saw a letter from a foreign company purporting to be acting on behalf of the Inland Revenue Service and the Ministry of Finance. And the letter is entitled, I have a copy of it, Mr. Chairman, I lay it for your edification and for the edification of colleagues. The letter is entitled Delinquent Short-Term Rental Tax Notice, and it raises several questions for me and for many others in the public who have voiced their concerns with the document. At issue, the letter is in fact, the letter came from what appears to be a foreign entity with no announcement or interaction from the government with the Bahamian people and others as to the objective before introducing such a broad-based initiative. Mr. Chairman, it appears that this initiative is geared toward targeting properties not occupied by their owners and that are used for short-term rentals. I think one senator reminded me that the short-term rental is regarded as 45 days or less, such as can be found on platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo. However, you know, if the government is seeking to check the qualifications for registration by such owners, there ought to have been an announcement of some kind. And if there was an announcement, and it seems many of us missed it, Bahamians should have been told who the foreign partners were, what the exercise is about, and who was being targeted. And in fact, we should have been told who had to respond to this letter. This could have been done through a proper public education campaign. Whatever happened in the Bahamas to good old-fashioned town hall meetings when designed to discuss such issues with the Bahamian public and others with direct interest. In my view, whatever the motivations, it is highly inappropriate and irregular to have a foreign entity interface with your citizens without a proper explanation. I mean, you know, we see what goes on in social media and all of these things that come out that are fake news, and I was hoping to see somewhere with this one some fake news, but the letter, Mr. Chairman, does not have a date that I see affixed to it. It is from a company called Avenue Short-Term Rental Notice, and it says at the top, on behalf of the Department of Inland Revenue, the Ministry of Finance, And the address is P.O. Box 830471, Birmingham, Alabama, 35283. And as I indicated, the heading is the Department of Inland Revenue, Ministry of Finance, delinquent short-term rental tax notice. And it reads, Avenue Insights and Analytics has been retained by the Department of Inland Revenue, Ministry of Finance, to conduct a review on taxpayers' compliance with the tax laws applicable to short-term rentals. The primary purpose of this evaluation is to identify properties that may be operating without obtaining a business license and/or collection of value-added tax, VAT. The Value-Added Tax Regulations 2014 indicates that the rental of any residential dwelling, single family residence, apartment, residential condominium, or other residential real estate for less than 45 executive days, you're correct, Senator, is a commercial rental establishment, and therefore VAT is payable on the rentals and must be remitted to the Department of Inland Revenue. I think I make my point. I'll table. This is a letter from a foreign entity to the Bahamian people, and the government has to speak to this at its earliest opportunity to say what this is about, what the objective is, who we need to answer, and why we got this. Now, that brings me to another point, right? Today's the 28th. The next point it brings me to is every Bahamian that I know today who involved in short-term rentals see it as an opportunity to finally be a part of a shareholder society, right? I have no qualms about paying taxes, right? But Bahamians are often required to work in institutions that focus on tourism. And these little rentals, Airbnb and Vrbo and whatever you can put onto your house as you come to the age of retirement and be able to. And I see foreign people walking around my community, walking in my neighborhoods, right? And I'm so happy that they can walk through my neighborhood freely, unmolested, undisturbed by us, and go about their business. And you know, I have an adopted son who visited me from Poland. He actually stayed with me, Ronnie. You were aware of this. And he said to me, you know, I'm going to catch the bus. So I said, why don't you just take a car? Take the car. You know, you take my car, the wife's car, and he brought his girlfriend with him, his fiancée, Olga. His name is Santiago, Arca, you know, and he's actually from Argentina, but he lives in Poland where he works. Huh? Oh, I don't know exactly which part. I think he's around the capital area, right? And he was able to go and take a jitney safely. He learned the lingo on the jitney, right? Which I no. How to pay, 5 for 2 or whatever it is they say, right? Roman, you should know what that is, right? And so I say all that to say this. This is an opportunity, Vrbo and Airbnb, in my mind, for Bahamians to participate firmly in the tourism trade, domestic and international. Because people come from the family islands, even people here who want to have a party somewhere in a house, privately with a pool that they don't have at home, they're able to go and rent and do things like that. I think we should be, as a government, encouraging people, helping people to be able to stand up these type of facilities in their homes or on their properties that would help them to earn an income from tourism, from their own patrimony that the foreigners come here and we give all kind of concessions to. All of us, we do it because we see it as an opportunity for us to get jobs for our people, and we readily do it. Sometimes we give them gross concessions, you know. And then the other one come and he said, you know, I want favored nation status as well. And what you gave to Atlantis, you got to give to Bahama, and what you gave to Bahama, you got to give to the cruise ship people who come over here on PI, because that's the way the business works. But these opportunities for Bahamians are rare when they can make money in the tourism industry. And I implore the government to find a way to look at this again, have another look at this, right? To ensure that what we're doing does not hamper Bahamians. Yeah, hamper Bahamians from doing what they're trying to do. And I'll cut this short, right? From your answer, Minister, I respect you very highly. So I know you're going to look into it or give us an answer that is palatable. Now I heard about, and as I conclude, I heard the AG talk about the website that these documents were on for so long, and the government guaranteeing good title, which is what the law does. As I concluded, I wonder if, because you also indicated that we need help with this, right? We need attorneys, more attorneys that could help us populate the register. And one thing that we saw when we were in office, we had issues with, was surveyors. Surveyors is an issue, right? Surveyors is an issue because surveying causes the process of granting crown titles to be slowed immensely, right? And so we wonder if the government could talk more closely, if you haven't done so, with the Association of Surveyors, if you did, whilst doing this, getting ready for this project. And I know, it is not going to be an easy one. It is a mammoth task, but I believe like you do that we can get it done. There's nothing Bahamians put their hands to that they cannot achieve. As it stands, we simply don't have the capacity, and we heard you say that, and I agree with you, to just jump in and get this done. But I want to suggest, on my feet, that, as I said to you privately, that perhaps government may want to consider beginning at the Crown land inventory, along with those subdivisions that the recent ones that you've mentioned. And that too will allay this fear that people have of, our crown lands and survey being in disarray. Because it's been that cry over all the years. And people come to that conclusion naturally because it takes so long to get things done. Such an undertaking would demonstrate, I believe, if you begin there with crown land and land that was compulsory purchased or acquired by the government, and you have land and government corporations, that we could just start populating the register, adjudicating those and getting those done. Such an undertaking, I believe, would also demonstrate government crown land records are not in a state of disarray as most people believe. And with those few words, I thank you for your time and attention, and I rest.
Yes. I'm not contributing. I just want to provide an answer to the question that
The chair recognizes Senator the
Thank
Honorable
you very
Michael
much. I just
Akitas.
wanted to provide an answer to the questions raised by the leader of opposition business, reference the letter that has gone out. And I want to begin by saying, Mr. Leader of opposition business, that we agree with you totally. There's no daylight between you and us when we talk about this being an opportunity for Bahamians, ordinary Bahamians, when they rent a property and put it on Airbnb or Verbo or any other vacation site and are able to earn some money. We welcome that. We think, as do you, that it's an opportunity for more Bahamians to become owners in the tourism industry. The Department of Inland Revenue will, I'm advised, release a press statement today shedding some more light on the issue. But what has happened is we have engaged, and I think the Prime Minister might have mentioned it in his budget communication, it's an effort to identify foreign owners of property that are renting in the Bahamas without registering for VAT and without paying business license. Bahamians do not require a business license or to register for VAT when they put their properties up for rental. Foreigners are required to do so. And so what has happened is this is a process of elimination. There are various, I understand it, various triggers, for want of a better word, that might indicate that there is Airbnb activity in a particular neighborhood, for example. For example, if they see that your stepson, your adopted son, is renting, let's say, a particular house. No, right. No, but what they say is, for example, if you see a listing on East Street or let's say Parliament Street, and so that acts as a trigger as, okay, this one is listed, maybe there are others. Send out a notice, require people to say, yes, I'm a Bahamian, and thereby there's a process of elimination. The intent is to identify those foreign owners who have Airbnbs, they're renting them, they're not registered for VAT, they have not obtained a business license. And so it's a broad brush. The Bahamians are encouraged to register and say, yes, I'm a Bahamian. You're not required to have a business license or VAT. So this is a process of elimination. What has happened is, and I think we've all seen it, where Airbnb, properties in the Bahamas registered on Airbnb, they see a lot of activity, but we don't see these properties being registered. And so this is an opportunity, this is an attempt at a process of elimination, where you go and you answer the question and say, I'm a Bahamian. Now what they say, they've advised me as well, is they encourage Bahamians to register as well so that they have a complete database. But I know how Bahamians go. They say, well, you want me to register so you could catch me. But no, the intention is not, the intention, Bahamians not required to have a business license or VAT. This is an attempt. This is a specialized company that does this. They do what they call scrape these websites like Airbnb, Verbo, other vacation sites to identify properties that are up for rental. And of course, we in the Bahamas are not benefiting from it. And so Bahamians need not be concerned that their operation will be taxed. This is an attempt to identify foreign holders of property. And the Inland Revenue Department, I'm advised, they should send out a statement today to shed some more light on it. And I agree with the member opposite. Sometimes it's best to put out the statement first instead of having to come behind. But I think once that goes out, that should shed some more light and comfort some people who might have been ill at ease.
Minister, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minister, I thank you much for your explanation. And I support your position that foreigners who have these properties in our country ought to pay the taxes. Because many of them come here, I know, from Abaco. They get second homes and they use them as rentals and they evade taxes from countries where they come from. They pay those taxes assiduously. They don't forget them. And so we support that altogether. I do. Let me speak for me. I support that altogether. And I'm sure Bahamians are relieved to know that their little Airbnb income, their Verbo income is safe. And I thank you for that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Reuben Rami.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to give my contribution to this timely land-related matter for our country. I believe many times that, I believe, like Solomon said, it's a time for everything under heaven. And there are some matters that I think should always carry more of a bipartisan tone, especially when they're also very, very critical to our commonwealth. And in the spirit of the word commonwealth, nothing reflects more on commonwealth than the ownership of land by its citizenry and action to the land. I believed, as was implied or stated by the Attorney General, though in somewhat of a little unbiased way, that there were, if you can't help it, then we'll speak to it, that there were lapses in this matter, but I don't think it appears, as he tried to put it, but I think it was excessively bipartisan. Nonetheless, I would simply say that I am glad that we are here. And I think through Senator Sandfield's contribution, he shed a bit of light on things governmentally. I will do similar, but more so to add gravity to the value and the necessity of this moment in time in light of historically what we have been going through. And it is so, as the Attorney General would have said, that from the 60s there are white papers and attempts, and the necessity for land reform was clearly seen. And then we had the 25-year history of Sir Lyndon, during which time, despite all the other things was done, nothing was done as relate to the reform of land in this particular context. So that word nothing, because I don't like blanket words, is specific and is supported by what was presented by the Attorney General. I think with more so during the time of Prime Minister Ingram and I think a bit under Perry Christie, and also now we see the reforms here. I listened to a statement that was made by the Attorney General that reflected comments made by the former Attorney General, Carl Bethel, and it drew me to some of his public comments on the matter from 2021. And in no ways am I implying plagiarism or anything, copying of anything like that, but if you read what the Attorney General presented and what Carl Bethel had stated then, you would think they almost flowed almost verbatim, probably because the issue remains the same. And they're fighting the same problem. And this is why I thought it reasonable to make it seem like who did not do, who ain't did, when every person saw this and we saw the development of the efforts going towards bringing this to some sort of head. We saw even under the former minister administration in 2021, which was said, as reflected by the Attorney General, that it was the time when the then Attorney General Carl Bethel stated that he was given clear instruction to move ahead with the legal reforms as it relate to land development, and he was urged to do that, and it was triggered by a whole series of things. And we know over the years we saw some of the biggest scandals in land that when we look at the cost of it to the public purse and the cost of hardship to people, it went into the hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of value, fixing problems because of shysters and scam artists and Sir Lyndon Pindon estate. You've heard many times, and I'm grateful for the work that the AG has been doing to continue the program. We're trying to make people whole in Nassau Village and Pinewood and Sea Breeze because of that land issue. You know, the reference for people to appreciate this, you remember when the church got knocked down? Well, the land related to that issue. The same way with the other issue in Sir Lyndon Pindon Estates, where we had to actually do a land swap. And government had to do that. Why? Because the people, just as in the instance of Pinewood Gardens, Nassau Village, and Sea Breeze, they weren't at fault, they were duped. And it was to the point now that the persons who actually owned the land wanted to get their value, and who else they going to get to than the cost the persons who were occupying the land, who in many instances had already paid off their mortgage notes, to have to pay them to get their word. And the government had to do what it had to have done to make it whole. But this shows a systematic fault that we had in our system over the years that actually needed to be addressed. And the thing about it is this scam and this illicit activity of land abuse and misuse, especially to the quieting of Title Act, had even begun to modernize itself in terms of its strategies. I will show you in instances whereas there was justices themselves who actually classified it in terms of its corrupt activities as saying that the courts themselves were unwilling pawns in this land deal. That's because how the process was so done and how evidence was presented. The courts then find themselves unwittingly being a part of it. And I'm quoting the Court of Appeal Justice Stella Scott Green, who warned in her 2016 ruling that the Bahamian court system was susceptible to being unwilling pawns in the commission of land theft and fraud. That's because of how the game was playing and the faults and the deficiencies and the loopholes we would have had in laws. She also said that the Equine Title Act in particular was effectively being employed as a tool to steal land, given that the material facts related to title applications were often hidden from the court. And you could find quotes and statements like this replete all over the place. And this has been causing real direct harm and pain to Bahamian people. And I'm glad we are, and we always should have taken it equivalent to that of violence and rape. Because when somebody takes your home for you, and you took the time and you paid your mortgage, you had your celebration that you paid your last banknote, feeling that you're a fair and just man and you have heritage to pass on to your children. And then to find out that somebody comes and tell you what you have vested all your time and life worked and the heritage that you had for your children was worth nothing. I thank God that I don't know of any reported incidences of people going postal. You could actually click out after that. I mean, could you imagine that? But this has been more commonplace than we thought. And then I remember the statements by one of our generational moguls in terms of land development, Franklin Wilson. And he's a younger, that's Frankie Wilson's son. So I think the perspective on this shows how a younger generation look, because I showed you how the abuse was done during the Acquiring Title Land Act. But this is what Franklin said. Franklin said, they take it to a whole different level now. And this is why I was paying attention to the processes and the checks and balances on the register itself. See, it's one thing to develop the documents and trick it and spin it and everything else and so on and so forth, because I think one of the things that was mentioned, especially with Sir Lyndon Pilden, states, oh, and recently, when there were lands developed in the Life-Akiti area out west, I think, is it Serenity or somewhere in that general area, about 1,000 acres. And I remember Carl Bettel also raising concerns about that, saying, how this land, as defective as it is, got registered in the first place. And then we saw with some of the statements that Franklin was actually saying, and one of the statements was, he's saying the increasing attempt to have deeds that were vested or transferred into real estate ownership in terms of record and the Registrar General and recording of the Registrar General. He said, they are now using the Registrar General Department through different ways to advance the same program. So they moved from the point of just tricking the courts. It seems that they even got to the point where they can manipulate people on the inside of the Registrar General and get this thing on the register, get this thing in there. So they started multiplying the ways and that they could manipulate, and how we say in gaming, boxing it, their odds of abusing the privileges as it relates to land, and it was causing a very, very serious problem. And when you look at it, the exact same reasons that was outlined by the Attorney General for the necessity of bringing about this thing was actually not only expressed through Dr. Hubert Minnis, when he's Prime Minister, through his AG. The same thing was also expressed to Hubert Alexander Ingram in his efforts to bring about it. And all acknowledge that this is going to be a mammoth task, even to this current Attorney General. It's going to be tedious. It's going to feel invasive, but this is the surgery our country actually needs. Then we need to be very, very cautious, because we've seen in the system that not only has it gotten to the point that the way the laws is then written, even despite maybe the gut instinct of justices, that the court, like that's stated by another justice, was how Trump she said it, unwilling pawns in the situation because of how the laws is actually written. But then we saw also manipulation for persons even who are actually registering it. Now when we reach to a point where there will be a once and for all registration of land to remove the ambiguities, then we need to be careful of those who are selected in this process, not even necessarily because of what may be done, but the very appearance because of what was done in the past. We need to make sure that the persons that we need to put in place, it is by necessity that we must have persons of tenure, a level of experience and expertise. But brother, honestly, in this country, some of the biggest thieves are some of the ones with the longest tenure and experiences, who've been playing this game a very long time. Some of the largest companies have been playing that same game a long time, ripping off land and destroying livelihood. Some of them would have been doing the exact same game as stated by our newest senator, whereas they played a dollar game. They throw up their title and they plainly tell you, so listen here, I could outspend you. I could run this all the way to Privy Council and my dollar's longer than yours. And many times it's not about justice, it's who got the longest pockets. That's a fact of the matter. So now when we start appointing these people, we must be beyond politics. We must even, in a sense, be beyond qualification, and we must look at ethics. We need to make sure that faces that are on those boards and in these places of responsibilities, when families look at that and see that name, they don't go into shock. They say, this is the same one who's stealing my land, and this is now the one over the land that is going to be locked in once and for all. Because we know our society, we know what our people have experienced, and we know historically what has been done before the 60s, going back into the 80s, all the way to now. The small man has been burnt many times by persons who carry names of honorableness. But they remember these names because they can remember who stole Grammy land. Now we poor and they rich. But surgery still have to be done. So in every step of the way, we must do our best to be as transparent as we can. And as in the example that Senator Alcides gave in relation to the inland revenue matter and the statement that he made, it is many times best to have the statement out before you publish a thing. It is many times best to bring the people aboard with you and the understanding, and maybe even have a mechanism, because whereas persons could actually request that certain persons recuse themselves from a certain environment, though they may have been appointed and qualified, I believe that if there is legitimate cause that the public have, that they can establish, then the person should be able to be removed or recused from any particular decision-making process for either an individual or an environment. We don't seek to make it this thing more cumbersome or more of a mammoth task than it is, and this is a Herculean task. But the pain is real. The pain is real. So in support of this has been a long journey for our nation over a period of time. This, at best, in my opinion, can be on its way, if properly financed, by next year. It definitely can't be completed. Nobody's implying that it can, because it is a Herculean task. There are low-hanging fruits that we can get up and done. But with transparency, with proper funding, with access, with proper education, it is hoped that this can get things done. The greatest advantage to wealth for any generation is the stepping stone that the generation before them leave behind. And one of the greatest values, sustainable values, that anyone could have is that of land and the good name of their parents. And so with that, I want to admonish and present my support for the bill, and the hope that this bill would obtain its end. The hope that if anything I say would have caused a need to consider whether in policy or actually in legislative nature, addressing the issues again of accountability to the public, and also help and aid in the vetting and the history of persons who will be involved in this particular process, ensuring that the registration department and process itself is not also abused under this regime, as has been established as being abused, well, to this very day. And to ensure that best practices are obtained so that the court, when they review this, as would have been done with other things, that they could see that, listen here, this is sufficiently tight, that when these steps are presented towards us, it makes it clear for a case that there is night and day, and there's apple and oranges, and a land can be adjudicated. My final point is this: that may address and begin the process of addressing illegalities and framework for improvement of land registration in the country. But I want to end with this point. Where are we with making whole those individuals who now still, and I've raised this before, have outstanding issues, debts, court rulings, payments from lands that would have been taken by eminent domain or otherwise for airports and for roads? Where are we now with them? I understand budget shortfalls, but for God's sake, the government itself, no government, should be the ones who is actually hypocritically causing people to lose out on what's entitled to them when they have penalties for the same individual if they don't pay their taxes towards the government. How much, maybe the AG could help, that we expect to pay out to resolve those outstanding judicial matters that should be pending, and particularly as relate to land and the usage of land, and or as a whole as relate to matters that has been adjudicated against the government that they are now obligated by law to settle. And with that, I rest and say let us all cooperate in bringing about this necessary change in our land reform. One thing though, we have always had a struggle, and I've raised this before, with the manpower that we need. Because we look at it structurally, all the legal framework, which I think a lot of work has gone into, and I can see where work was done before and how it's tightening up. Excellent. I can see the skill set, because we have a lot of competent attorneys in our country. Again, let's find the ones who ain't been practicing thieving, all right. But we have historically had an underdeveloped lands and survey department. And for all the work that needs to be done, that institution itself needs to be strengthened. Beforehand, I've mentioned before, we've had that shortages of surveyors, which is also going to be critical to doing what we need to do. I think we have a good amount of appraisers because most of our real estate persons are qualified to do that, so, and doing those assessments, that's not a problem. What are we doing now to engage the necessary amount of persons who can help with the surveying of these properties? And then also, what are we doing futuristically, maybe through BTVI or other places, to train or through our scholarship grants to encourage our young people to take up scholarship and take up the task of becoming skilled surveyors, et cetera, to fill the gap that we have in our system. Because without which, that too is going to add delay to this overall project. And with that, I rest.
As many? Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for the wrap-up, I want to thank all colleagues for their input into these significant pieces of legislation that are geared to transform how land and title is conducted in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is a good day, Mr. President. It's a day that I have been looking forward to, and I'm very proud to get it this far. Yes, we understand implementation is going to be difficult. We're up for the challenge. We recognize the questions about surveyors in the country. We're working both with Lands and Surveys and the private sector to come up with a viable approach to that. The fact of the matter is, you're exactly right. We don't have Bahamians seeking to be trained to be surveyors. In fact, the last batch of surveyors that we had to bring in to help supplement Lands and Survey were from Guyana. And Guyana actually has quite a stable of surveyors. And the fact of the matter is we might have to do that as well. Now, we have seconded a surveyor with the administrative team that we have in place, led by Permanent Secretary Cecilia Strawn, who is in charge of implementation of the registry. So we have a full-time surveyor now seconded on staff who's going to help us with the appropriate plan on how we are going to properly survey to support the adjudications. So we've already started that early on to be able to, and he's working actually on a scope of work for me that I should hopefully receive next week on how we're going to address that issue. Certainly we have a lot of lawyers in the country, and we don't think we have a capacity shortage there. And so we're optimistic. We have the office space already secured. It's going to be in the financial center with the other two registries, so all of the registries will be in one place. And so we will have the ability to move right in as we build out the team that we need for the registry. Now that we're passing these bills, you will soon see a staffing plan released and solicitation notices for persons who want to be part of the registry. We actually have interested people from within the service looking to be part of this reform, which is always encouraging, because that makes it easier than having to go on the outside and hire and go through the Public Service Commission and all of that kind of stuff. So again, I just want to thank everybody. We are working, and you have my utmost assurance that we will do what is necessary. This is an important reform to the Prime Minister, and as the Minister of Finance, I'm sure we will have the resources to make it happen. Again, Mr. President, I want to thank everybody, and I so move for the second reading of the Registered Land Bill 2025.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read, that the Registered Land Bill 2025 be read for a second time. As many? As many? The chair recognizes. As many as are in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to make provision for the registration of titles to land and for dealing in land so registered and for purposes connected therewith.
For the second reading.
Yes, Mr. President, I just want to formally move the other bill in the compendium. So I move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to provide for systemic adjudication of rights and interest in land within the Bahamas, the demarcation of boundaries and matters connected therewith. This is the land adjudication bill.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be read for a second time. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The bill will be read and committed. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to provide for the systematic adjudication of rights and interests in land within the Bahamas, demarcation of boundaries, and matters connected therewith.
Further second reading.
Are there none, Mr. President?
Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole with Senator James Roll Turner in the chair.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with Senator James Roll Turner in the chair. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The Senate will now resolve itself into a Committee of the Whole with Senator James Roll Turner as chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair.
Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to a bill for an act to make provision for the registration of titles to land and for dealings in land so registered and for purposes connected therewith, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion is carried. The short title is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that clauses 2 through 169 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 169 be agreed. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be agreed in its entirety. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, now we move to a bill for an act to provide for systemic adjudication of rights and interests in land within the Bahamas, the demarcation of boundaries and matters connected therewith, and I move that the long title of this bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the short title of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The short title of the bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that clauses 2 through 32 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 32 of the bill be agreed. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The bill is agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I now move that Senator Darren Pickstock do take the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that Senator Darren Pickstock do now return to the chair. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion is agreed. Senator Pickstock will now take the chair. Chairman, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined the bill and made no amendments thereto.
It has been moved and seconded. Sorry. The chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has examined the bills, having made no amendments thereto.
Third reading. Third reading.
Third reading and passing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to make provision for the registration of titles to land and for dealings in land so registered and for purposes connected therewith.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Order that the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to make provision for the registration of titles to land and for dealings in land so registered and for purposes connected therewith.
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be the Registered Land Act of 2025. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, Mr. President, I move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to provide for systemic adjudication of rights and interests in land within the Bahamas, the demarcation of boundaries and matters connected therewith.
Is there a seconder?
Hold on. This one. Moved and seconded that
It has been,
bill. You read it third.
it has been moved and seconded that the land adjudication bill be read a third time and passed. As many as are in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Order that the bill be now read a third time
And pass.
and passed.
A bill for an act to provide for the systematic adjudication of rights and interests in land within the Bahamas, demarcation of boundaries, and matters connected therewith.
Order that the bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be the Land Adjudication Act 2025. Thank you. For the third reading,
And none, Mr. President.
consideration of House amendments, resolutions, discharge, notices for further meetings,
Renewal notices in the name of the government.
orders for clerk, adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die.
Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Randy Roll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Right before we leave, I just want to take this opportunity to send condolences to my fraternity brothers, members of Kappa Alpha Psi, and the family of Brother Bill Wallace. He was a good gentleman who founded, I guess, the chapter here in Nassau. He took a lot of us in under his wings. Former Senator Quinton Lightburn
and many other brothers. He has been known for a number of years throughout the community. He's spent a lot of time even in the old Malcolm Creek. So, my good brother Ryan Pinder would have known him as well, and he would have worked closely with Marvelous Marvin as well. And so, on behalf of, like I said, my family and the entire member of the Cap Alpha Psi clan, we send our condolences to him. And I just want to also send condolences to, the late Cisco, who, met many years ago as well, too, during his time working with Neville Wisdom. And Cisco was a happy, lucky guy, always dancing. He was the life of the party. Remember seeing him 2 days, even before his passing, but was always in a joyful spirit, and so, knew a lot of history on sports as well as John Canoe. And so to his family as well, I extend my condolences to them. May their souls rest in peace. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate at its rising do adjourn. Sine die. As many as are in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you very much for so ably filling in today the absence of the President. And I move that the Senate now do adjourn.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as are in favor will say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. The Senate stands adjourned.